Hey, I'm Tanner.
And I'm Alli, and today we're going to talk about how do you know if you're compatible with the person that you're dating.
So in our last video that we made for CatholicMatch, we talked about how to know if you have found the one. And we talked about 4 things that you can kind of keep in mind as you're judging whether or not you have found the one.
The first one is whether or not you have a desire to lay down your life for another person.
The second thing was bringing friends into your relationship to help you give kind of like an unbiased assessment of your relationship.
Yep. The third one was if you've prayed about your relationship and where it's going, do you feel peace about it?
And then the fourth and final thing that we talked about in that video was if you have compatibility with the other person. So we're going to zero in on that last point today and kind of help you guys unpack whether or not you're compatible with the person that you're dating.
Yeah, it's really easy to just say are we compatible? But that is like a very in-depth question. So we're going to give you guys 3 points, 3 questions, I guess, really, to ask yourself to know if you're compatible. But this is not an exhaustive list of questions. So you can't just check. I have the 3 things that Tanner and Alli said, and now I'm compatible with the person I'm dating. Please don't do that. That would be really bad. All right, so we're going to just jump right in.
That's me jumping in.
Oh, gosh.
Was that good?
That's weird.
So the first thing that you need is a shared goal for your lives. You need something rooted outside of your relationship that you can both run towards.
Yes, and we're going to call this a capital G goal. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But yes, your capital G goal, if you're a Catholic or you're a Christian, is probably you want to get to heaven, right? Like you want to have eternal life with God forever. And if that's your vocation to get married, your goal should be to get each other to that place. And so when you're dating, to talk about that shared goal is really, really important. When Tanner and I first started dating, he asked me the question, do you think sainthood is possible? And I said, yes. And he was like, good, me too. And that really laid the foundation for our relationship because with that question comes a lot of other just trickling things and values and beliefs that we had for life and really allowed us to chase after that shared goal.
But we can't stress enough that you really need a capital G goal. You need something rooted outside of your relationship that you can both run towards, outside of just the fun times that you have together or the attraction that you feel for the other person. Because what you find fun right now might not be what you find fun in 40 years. And attractions go up and down. And as you age, attraction just changes. And so you need something outside the relationship to be anchored in.
Yes. And under this capital G goal of getting to heaven comes a lot of other important goals too. If you're dating someone, do you value marriage? Is that what you want out of this? Do you desire to raise a Catholic family someday? Do you desire to continue practicing your faith even when times are hard? These are all really important goals to have when you're just having these conversations about, dating and what life looks like.
A synonym for a capital G goal might be a non-negotiable. Do you share a big, deep non-negotiable with the other person?
Yes. That's beautiful. Very good.
And the second thing that you need when determining whether or not you're compatible with the other person are some lowercase g goals, some shared interests. You're going to be spending your entire life with the other person. You need to be at least enjoying some of the same things with the other person.
Yeah. So for Tanner and I, some of the lowercase g goals that I had, which you could probably have these before you even start dating somebody and thinking about them, is I really desire to live close to my family. So Tanner and I were really blessed that we both lived in Colorado when we started dating, but we decided to stay here because we have some family close by, which is really beautiful. The next thing is I really desire to be active. Tanner does too, but I really like to run. And so I've kind of gotten Tanner on board with running and that lowercase g goal of mine. But I think that it's really important to think about these 2 things in particular because 1, both of these things bring us life. And 2, even though Tanner maybe didn't have the same goal as running to stay active, he was open to that idea. And in the same way, Tanner really desires to make beautiful Catholic content on the internet for the world. I didn't necessarily have that same goal, but here I am being open to it and it brings us life.
And you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I try my best.
Yeah. But like I said, some of these interests change over time, but at the forefront of your relationship, it's important to have some shared interests and at the very least an openness to sharing your partner's interest and whatever they're interested in.
I also think that if you have 0 interest in what your significant other is doing or what they're excited about or what they're passionate about, that probably is time for you to start thinking do I desire to lay down my life for this person? If I have no desire to sacrifice for that person and making videos on the internet is kind of a sacrifice for me, but I know that Tanner loves doing it and it's fun for him and it gives him life. So I have a desire to be open to that. And I think that's really important to think about.
Okay, so you need a big uppercase G goal for your life. You need some smaller lowercase g goals in your lives. And then third and finally, you you need to give yourself an honest examine in your heart with whether or not you really and truly enjoy the other person. Are you genuinely attracted to the other person? Do you get life from spending time with that person? Are you more attracted to their personality than you are their physical person? These are honest questions that you need to look deep into your heart and ask yourself.
A good way to kind of know if you're like authentically enjoying being with this person is like when you leave hanging out with them, or like you're on a date with them and you go home at the end of the night, do you feel energized with that, like leaving that situation? Or do you feel really drained from that situation? That doesn't mean that like every time you hang out with someone, it has to be like this like amazing feeling of like, yeah, just being super stoked, because usually when you're dating someone, tough conversations are going to come up. You're going to have like, yeah, difficult conversations with that person. And that doesn't always feel like the best feeling, but you don't leave feeling like totally drained and like discouraged from that relationship or that date or wherever you're doing with that person.
There are a few times when Alli and I were dating in which we had some really hard conversations, some really kind of ugly, uncomfortable conversations that were not enjoyable in the slightest in the moment. But I still drove home after those conversations feeling like grateful that I got to spend time with her, and feeling hopeful for the future, and feeling like we made progress in our relationship by talking through those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, and that's super, super important. When you're thinking about compatibility, and especially in this final point, if you really enjoy spending time with that person, you also need to think about like, is this an idea of the person that I have in my head? Or do I really like the person that's in front of me? I think especially in the time of social media and texting and all these ways that you can get to know people without actually being with them, it's really easy to fall into like making up an idea of this person and not actually falling in love with the person that's in front of you. So just think about those two things and just like, yeah, reflect on like, am I making up this like fake idea of this person in my head, or am I falling in love with the person that's actually in front of me?
That's a brilliant point.
Yeah.
I genuinely enjoy the way you think.
That's so kind.
Yes, I'm attracted to your personality.
Great.
Much more than your physical person, though I'm attracted to that.
Beautiful.
Is this awkward?
So we are going to recap these things really briefly, but yes, we're talking about compatibility and how you know you're compatible with the person that you're dating. The first point we talked about is having a big G goal, which if you're a Christian/Catholic should be to get to heaven.
And then we also talked about having lowercase g goals, having shared interests, or at the very least, an openness to sharing interests with the other person.
And finally, are you authentically enjoying the person in front of you's company? And like, do I authentically enjoy spending time with that person?
So keep these three things in mind as you're determining whether or not you have compatibility with the person that you're dating, so that you can know if that other person is indeed the one. And I think we're going to continue unpacking that conversation that we had about how to know if you're the one. I think CatholicMatch is going to put that video up right here. If not, then I look like a dingus. But I think in our next video, we want to talk to you guys about how to bring a group of your friends or family or loved ones into your relationship to kind of help you assess that relationship.
Yeah, and into that discernment process, because that can be a tricky thing.
That can be a very tricky thing.
Yes. So until next time, CatholicMatch, I'm Alli.
And I'm Tanner.
And we'll see you next time.
Gosh, I enjoy who you are so much.